Usually, when I start a talk in Rajagiri, I start either with a joke or with a story. But today, uh, I want to be a bit different. It might be a bit emotional. August 15, 2025, I was standing to give a small speech on the occasion when one of our colleagues took her life and we were all gathered for viewing. I was sobbing uncontrollably on that day on stage, and everybody felt very bad because now, as mentioned, doctors are not supposed to cry. This is the fact. One of my classmates, a psychiatrist, at the peak of his career, went home one day, had a chat with his wife, had coffee with the wife, and jumped from the 13th floor and committed suicide. Another surgeon in the city, a very leading surgeon, at the peak of his career, 70 years, went to his farmhouse, hung himself, and committed suicide. Doctors do cry, but we are conditioned to believe that showing emotion is weakness. So we hide it, suppress it, and carry on. So the idea of what I'm trying to talk in the next 15 minutes is to move from a culture of normalized suffering to one of systemic support. I'll start with my story. This was a car which I purchased in a couple of years back, initially in my career, KL7 AG3. It was a Hyundai Accent car. That was a time when I was the only doctor in one hospital, neurologist. So day in and day out, all calls, everything. So one day we had gone to Wagaman to climb Kushmala, and on return, the car stopped. It didn't move. The driver came, the workshop person came and found that there was no oil in the car. There was no coolant in the car. Because I had not taken the car for any service in the last almost a year and a half. Then 2 years later, I decided to sell the car. People were offering me a premium because it's a doctor's car. They offered me 15,000 rupees more than market value because the common concept was a doctor's car is a well-maintained car. That is the same situation regarding the health of doctors also. Burnout is real. You take any other profession, people talk in public about burnout. You'll take software. Recently, even the Indigo episode was because pilots were not allowed to fly the flight beyond certain number of hours. Heroes don't complain, heroes don't rest. That is the narrative regarding both nurses and doctors. But if you look at LinkedIn or any social media platform, this was one of the posts which came in LinkedIn. After a 32-hour brain surgery, these surgeons collapsed from exhaustion, saving a life before resting. So this is the narrative which is being projected in the social media, that doctors have to work for 30. Will you allow any pilot to fly for 24 hours without taking rest? No. But doctors take it as a pride, a badge of honor, that no, I am working 24 hours, 36 hours, and taking so much of risk on themselves. So they think that no, you have to project that hero image. And this is one, look at this image. This was one image which was put up in LinkedIn and other platforms where during surgery, a surgeon collapsed. He has to operate. So he decided to put an IV line in his leg, started an IV fluid, and continued to operate, took a photo and put it on social media. Why? Because he wants to be a hero. He wants to be better than the other all doctors working in. He is a hero, who continues to save a life in spite of this. Burnout is real, and burnout is something which usually is hidden under the carpet. Now, what is the situation in India? A doctor is under constant fear of litigation, violence, of somebody hitting them. Long hours are worn as a badge of honor. Somebody complaining of excessive working hours, or I am tired, I am depressed, I am exhausted, is considered taboo. Blaming, always the person is blamed. So that is why when we started these small meetings, now whenever Sentinel event happens, they were so relieved now, because ultimately, previously, there was only one person who was responsible. Now we openly say that it's not your fault, it is the problem of the system or the process. And somebody crying or breaking down is considered as weakness. So in India, over the years, we don't have a burnout crisis, but we have a normalized suffering culture for nurses and doctors. Everybody asked, no, you took this profession knowing very well that you have to suffer. You have to be emotionally strong. That narrative has to change. No doctor joining at first MBBS realized that no, this is what is in store for him. Second, I'll touch upon only 5 points. And second is second victim. In every adverse event, there is a person who suffers and a caregiver who is a healthcare worker who silently suffers. They go through these phases. First is a phase of chaos and shock. What happened? Was it my fault? That keeps ruminating in their mind again and again. And then they start thinking, if only I had taken this care, maybe I could have saved this. He goes home, not able to sleep. The whole event starts replaying in his mind. And then he comes to the hospital and hears that people have started talking about that incident. He is fearing that will there be judgment? Will there be litigation? And what will the HR do? Will the management call me for an official explanation on all this? And many people suffer in silence. So what they need is this compassionate listening, reassurance that distress is normal, support from peers, clear humane communication, and something like a safe space to explain whole thing without the fear of being judgmental or being found punitive. And at times, tell them that if you want to take rest, take leave, give a paid leave for 2-3 days. The third point which I want to is compassion fatigue. We always talk about compassion, but how long can we cry? How long can we feel compassionate to patients? There is a neurological basis for this also. This is called, I'll just show that. When you go for a funeral and see that young person who died or a lady who died, and if you start thinking that, oh, suppose if it's my wife who had this malady, who had this cancer, and she dies at 35, you feel miserable. Whereas if you feel for them, compassionate for them, that is compassionate empathy for them, that means you help them. You go to a funeral, help them, be there for some time, arrange something, consoling the people, consoling the relatives, consoling the husband. That is feeling for them. These two are neurobiologically or structurally, this is different. When you feel with that person, identifying yourself with that tragedy, you generate all the pain circuits. You feel miserable. Whereas if you help them, feeling for them, you release oxytocin. You feel comfortable. You come home from that funeral feeling happy because you have taken the trouble to travel all the way for that funeral. They felt happy that you were there to feel for them. So that strategic shift has to happen. So the downstream effect is, if the caregiver, whether it's a nurse or a doctor, is not happy or content, naturally it shifts down to patient bad side experience. Now the fourth topic which I want to highlight these are all topics which I have discussed in the book. So since I have only 15 minutes, I thought I'll write a book. Satisfaction versus experience. I think everybody in this audience is married. But Achan is not married. But Achan can understand what married people have gone through. All married people fight in front of the TV for the remote because somebody likes Malayalam movie, the other person likes Netflix something. So they fight for the remote. But if you ask them, are you satisfied with your marriage? Everybody will raise their hands. I am not at all satisfied with the marriage. But if you ask them, how is the experience? On the whole, the experience is very good. Isn't it? So when they pose for a picture, they pose for the picture like this. Because on the whole, the experience is good. But are you satisfied? There are small issues for which I am not satisfied. So why I am saying all these in front of the marriage analogy here? Because is it possible to completely satisfy patients coming to a hospital? This is something everybody has to ask ourselves. Because they are not going to a hotel to enjoy. They are coming with problem. You cannot guarantee a good outcome for everyone. People will have complications. When you puncture put a subclavian line, 1,000 times there might be complications. You put an spinal anesthesia, people will have complications. People getting admitted in a hospital suddenly might die even before we could figure out what went wrong. So satisfying someone is impossible in healthcare. So if you try, tell your staff that you have to satisfy all the patients coming to the hospital, that is an unachievable aim. So now what is the solution? So we have to transfer from something called a transactional care to an experiential care. Transactional care means, I'll tell you a simple example. Somebody has a road traffic accident. The person is lying on the road. People gather together. Everybody is trying to help them. They put them on a car or an ambulance. The driver rides fast, drives fast, takes to the hospital. Everybody, the relative, is so thankful to all of them for helping them. But the moment they enter the hospital, they start shouting. You didn't do that, you didn't do that, because it is transactional. They feel that I am paying you this amount of money. You have to guarantee that this person has to walk out of the hospital without any problem. So if you view every patient interaction as a transactional process where they pay money and we provide a solution, that is not possible. So what we have to change is to an experiential care. That means be by the side of them during their vulnerable period, during their crisis. I'll tell you. So this is something which I want to highlight, and this is very, very in detail discussed in the book. Because as doctors and nurses, we were never told how to make the experience of a person in a hospital better. We were told how to put a line, how to treat an ischemic heart disease, how to treat stroke, that's all. But how to make that experience better for the person, because in morning also Devan Ramendran sir told, they remember only that experience in the hospital. They don't remember what happened inside the theater, how many hours you operated, the difficult surgery, but they only remember what the experience they had in the hospital. Every interaction in a hospital should be based on this acronym called HEART. You respond with heart, you consult with heart, you react with heart. H for hearing, uninterrupted hearing. Somebody coming with a complaint, everybody in the hospital should spend time again and again hearing to what they say. Studies show that every healthcare professional stops that person within 18 seconds. Nobody listens to somebody beyond 18 seconds. Second is empathy. Empathy is a term which is used left and right in any meeting, but nobody is trained how to show empathy. If you say empathy, people say you have to be born with empathy. You feel for them. But how to show empathy? Because even if you are feeling not empathetic or sympathetic, you are not feeling, your wife has shouted, you had a big argument at home, and how can you feel empathy for patient when you are not in a good mood? But if you are trained to show empathy, that is just a mechanical act. You use that you save that interaction by showing empathy. Just say that we are here to support you. We will go take every extent to help you and support you, for S, and A for acknowledge, saying that we understand your pain. Many times we say that this is all in the mind, or this is rubbish, no, this is nothing. Acknowledge, because they are having real pain. Acknowledge that this is a very, very difficult situation, and validate, saying that it is quite natural in such a circumstance to feel depressed, emotional, and find out what is the emotion which is leading to them. And A for analysis. Analyzing, you have to understand how is it affecting vitals, like view their problem from a different perspective. How is it affecting their life? What is the idea of the patient about the illness? What is the expectation? And what is worrying them? If you ask these 4 questions correctly, you will know exactly what they expect from the care. Maybe it is a financial thing. Maybe they don't want any investigation. Maybe they want only some reassurance. This HEART model makes a huge difference in changing from a transactional care to an experiential care. And lastly, I'll finish by talking a little bit about, if you want to make the experience better, we have to change from fee-for-service to value-based care. Fee-for-service is like McDonald's, where we keep on making burgers again and again in a short period of time, where value-based care is going for a restaurant in a fine dining restaurant, where it's a curated meal which is made for you. So we have to slowly move from this fee for service to a the value-based care, and that will definitely make the doctors and the nurses feel much better, because when you make a good dish and serve it to somebody, the experience is much better, even if they have to wait for 45 minutes. Finally, the food that is served to them. For example, somebody who is waiting in an OPD for 30 minutes and enters, they might become irritable, but you can make them that experience 30 minutes much better by giving them opportunities to give the history, engaging them. But when they enter the consultation room, if the experience is better, the doctor spends adequate time, they will leave the hospital with a very good experience. So these are the basic tools for training. I just rush through this. These are the things which we discussed now. And always, I just trying to reiterate the fact that there is always a fourth aim in healthcare, and that is the experience of the healthcare worker. How the nurses feel in the hospital. Are they feeling better? Are they feeling satisfied? The doctors, how do they feel? So these are the small things. Now I will rush through this. And finally, I end with this quote again and again. Our goal should be to replace that hero narrative to a human narrative. And let us care for the people who take care of the patients. Richard Branson famously said, you take care of the employees, they will take care of the business. In healthcare, you take care of the nurses and the doctors, they will take care of the patients as well as the business. Thank you for your patient listening.